In today's lecture, once again, we are going to discuss about the metals and non-metals in detail. So children, you know very well how the metals are different from the non-metals. So let's start discussing the difference between metals and non-metals one by one. So the first difference that we are going to discuss is the appearance. That how metal appearance and what is their state. So basically student, the metals have shiny appearance. Okay, this shines. But the non-metal have dull appearance. They do not shine. Metals exist in a solid form, except one, that is mercury. Mercury exists in a liquid form at room temperature. Melting point of mercury is about 30 degrees Celsius. So above the 30 degrees Celsius, mercury exists in a liquid form. Rest of the metal exist in a solid form. Non-metals, they have the dull appearance and basically they exist in a gaseous form. But some non-metals are there which exist in a solid form as well as in a liquid form. So let's discuss the differences with the screen. So I'll share you the screen. You go through that and you will come to know that how metals are different from non-metals. I hope the screen is visible to everyone, right? So you can see here the first difference between the metals and the non-metals is their physical state. So metals have the solid state, okay? But they accept, as I told you, the mercury and the gallium and the cesium. Children, these two metals like gallium and cesium melts on our palm because their melting point is again approximately 30 degrees Celsius. So when you hold these two metals on your palm, they start absorbing heat from our body and undergoes melting. While non-metals, they exist in a solid form, gaseous form, as well as in a liquid form. So here it is written that the bromine. Bromine exists in a liquid form. When you expose bromine to the room temperature, it starts vaporizing. Look at the second point, that is melting and boiling point. So basically children, metals have high melting and boiling point, but except again the same, that is mercury, gallium and cesium. While non-metals have low melting point. As I told you, they exist in a gaseous form and bromine exists in a liquid form. So of course they have the low melting and boiling point, but except the diamond and the graphite. And of course, one more exception is there, that is the boron. But the boron belongs to the metalloid because it shows some property of metals and non-metals. Let's discuss the third point, that is the density. So children, the metals have high density. As we know, they exist in a solid form. So the mass by volume ratio of the metal is of course the high, and hence the density is high. While non-metals have the low density as they exist in a liquid and gaseous form, so their density is very less. Next property is the malleability. Children, what do you mean by malleability? Malleability is the property of metal in which metals can be drawn into a thin sheet. They can be beaten into thin sheet. So if we heat the metals, we can prepare a thin sheet from them. And out of the all metals, the gold is highly malleable. If you take a 1 gram of gold, from that 1 gram of gold, you can draw a thin wire up to 2 kilometers long. And this property is called ductility. So ductility is the property of metals in which metals can be drawn into thin wires. So these two property only the metal possesses, while non-metals are non-malleable and non-ductile. They do not show this property. Rather, they are brittle. It means when we heat them, they get breaks into the pieces. And this property of the non-metal is called brittleness. Look at the next property, children, that is electrical and thermal conductivity. So children, metals are the good conductor of electricity and heat. And that is the reason the metals are used in electrical wires and for making the cooking utensils respectively, because they are the good conductor of electricity and heat. But generally, the non-metals are the poor conductor of electricity and the heat. But except graphite. Graphite is a good conductor of electricity because of the presence of one free electron in the structure of a graphite. So basically the graphite contains the hexagonal ring of a carbon. Graphite is a pure form of carbon where the carbons are arranged in a hexagonal form, while one electron at each of the carbon is free, and due to which the graphite conduct an electricity. So this is the exception for this property. Next is luster. Basically, children, metals have the lustrousness. It means the shiny appearance. So metal shines, but the non-metals have the dull appearance. They do not shine. Next property is sonorousness. Sonorousness is the property of the production of ringing sound by the metal when we heat them. So when we heat the metal, they produces the ringing sound, which is a characteristic property of the metals only, while non-metals are non-sonorous. They do not produce ringing sound when we stuck them. Next property is the hardness. So basically, the metals are hard, except sodium, potassium, lithium, and mercury. Children, sodium, potassium, and lithium, they are the very soft, solid form of the metal, and we can cut them easily with the knife. But non-metals, as I told you, that they exist in a gaseous form and liquid form, so they are soft. But there are some metals which can exist, there are some non-metals that can exist in a solid form also. For example, phosphorus, sulfur, carbon, and iodine. So they exist in a solid form, but they are not that much hard as the metals are. But one more exception is there, and that is the diamond. Diamond is the hardest natural known substance. It is very hard, and diamond is the pure form of carbon. So carbon is the non-metal. So the diamond is exception for this property. Iodine. Iodine is the exception for the property of non-lustrousness. Basically, we know the metals have the shiny appearance. It means they are the lustrous. And non-metals have the dull appearance. They do not shine. But the one exception is there, and that is the iodine. Iodine have the shiny appearance. Okay. So this is about the difference between the metals and the non-metals. Let's discuss some more property of the metals and the non-metals, and that is the tensile strength. Okay, what is that property? It is the tensile strength. Okay, children. So what is tensile strength? Tensile strength is the ability of a metal to hold the things. Okay, it is ability of anything to hold the things. Okay, to hold a particular pressure or the force, we can say, right? So basically, what we see that the bridges and the building construction, where we use the metal iron. because the iron have the high tensile strength. It have the best capacity to hold the pressure, and that is the reason the bigger things like the bridges and the buildings, okay, where the iron is used for construction. While very less or least tensile strength, we can say they have the very least tensile strength, and due to this they cannot hold the pressure, right? This is the one more property that we have discussed apart from the points that are given in the screen. Let's discuss the next topic, that is the chemical properties of the metal, where we are going to discuss about that how metal reacts with oxygen, water, with acid, and the salt solution of other metal. So let's start with the first point, that is how metal react with oxygen in air. So basically children, you might have seen that the metal like iron, okay, it easily undergoes the corrosion. So if we see anything which is made up of the iron and which is not galvanized, we can say, or which is not coated by the oil or the grease. So once this iron metal come in a contact with atmospheric oxygen, it easily undergoes corrosion. It means it reacts with the atmospheric oxygen and form the metal oxide. So iron is the most corrosive metal. It easily undergoes corrosion and react with the atmospheric moist air, where the oxygen and the water vapors present in air combines with metal iron to form ferric oxide, which is a brown color powdery substance. So basically we observe that the brown coat is formed over the metal iron is due to its corrosion. So is it the iron only which is a highly corrosive? No. So for example, you are provided with various metals such as potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, zinc, iron, copper. And if I told you to carry out an experiment to check which metal is highly reactive among the all given, so what you will do? So what you have to do first, you have to take the metal and you have to allow it to expose to the atmosphere. Remember one thing while carrying out this experiment, children. The metal like sodium and potassium, they are highly corrosive, okay, or we can say they are highly reactive with the atmospheric oxygen. So when we expose these two metals to the atmospheric air, they start catching the fire very vigorously. So that is the reason the metal like potassium and sodium are kept in a kerosene, because the kerosene prevent its reaction with the atmospheric oxygen. So in the laboratory also, these two metals are preserved in a kerosene. It do not react with the oxygen present in the kerosene, but it can react with the oxygen present in the air as well as the oxygen present in a water. Even if you keep these two metals like potassium and sodium into the ice cold water, it will start catching the fire. This much vigorously, these two metals can react with atmospheric oxygen and oxygen present in water. So what precautions we need to take care while carrying out this activity? If these two metals are preserved in the kerosene bottle, then you have to take out this metal very carefully, and if you have allowed this two metal to expose to the atmospheric oxygen, you can observe that these two metal start catching the fire. Immediately, once these two metal get exposed to the air. So among the given metal, the potassium and sodium are highly reactive. They are more reactive even the iron. Children, you observe that the iron undergoes corrosion, but it will take many days to happen. It doesn't mean that we have the iron metal and when we expose it to the air, immediately it undergoes corrosion. No, it will take some time. It will take few days to undergo corrosion. But this is not same in case of the metal like potassium and sodium. Once you expose these two metal to the atmospheric oxygen, immediately they react and they start catching the fire. So let's see what is the reaction of metal sodium and potassium with oxygen. So student, here is the reaction between the metal sodium and potassium with oxygen. So let's see what happens. So here we have the metal sodium. When it reacts with oxygen, it forms metal oxide, and that is the sodium oxide, Na2O, right? So we have to balance the equation also. So this will be your 2Na, right? Because we have to multiply here 2. So total 2 oxygens are there in the product side. Here we have the 2 oxygens in the reactant side, but the product side sodium are 4. So we have to write 4 here, right? This is the balanced chemical equation for the reaction of metal sodium with oxygen. So it forms the sodium oxide, and this reaction happens very vigorously. Once the sodium get exposed to the atmospheric oxygen, it start catching the fire and forms the sodium oxide. Let's see the reaction with potassium. So when the potassium reacts with the atmospheric oxygen, it forms the potassium oxide. Okay, so this is the balanced chemical reaction for the reaction of potassium with oxygen. So it forms the potassium oxide. So children, can you write the reaction for the synthesis of magnesium oxide when magnesium react with oxygen? We have done this reaction in the first chapter of the chemistry, where we took the magnesium ribbon and we carried out its burning over the flame of the Bunsen burner, and that gives out the magnesium oxide. Okay, this is the balanced chemical equation for the reaction of magnesium with oxygen, and it gives out the magnesium oxide. Children, in the same way, other metals also react with the oxygen and forms the metal oxide. Now children, these metal oxides are basic in nature. When we dissolve this metal oxide into the water, then it will start forming the metal hydroxides, right? For example, we have the metal oxide, that is sodium oxide. When we dissolve this metal into the water, it will start forming the metal hydroxide, and that is the alkali. So let's see its equation, that how it reacts. So children, here is the equation that how metal oxides are basic in nature. So for example, here I have the sodium oxide. When I dissolve this substance into the water, it will form NaOH. And we know the nature of NaOH is basic. It is alkali. What are alkali? The water soluble bases are known as alkali. So when metal oxides get dissolved in water, forms metal hydroxides. And this metal hydroxide shows pH above 7. And hence they are basic in nature. Right children? So this is the reason that if we check the pH of metal oxide solution, it will be of course above the 7. Okay, because the metal hydroxides are formed when metal oxides get dissolved in water. So you can also write some more equations for the reaction of metal like zinc, metal like iron, reaction with oxygen, and that will ultimately form their corresponding metal oxides. And when these corresponding metal oxides get dissolved in water, they form their corresponding metal hydroxides. So remember one thing, that the metal oxides are basic in nature, because when they get dissolved in water, they form metal hydroxides. All right, children. So this is about our today's lecture. In the next lecture, we will discuss about that how metal reacts with water, not metal oxides, okay, only metal. How metal reacts with water, then how metal reacts with the acid and the salt solution. So this is about our today's lecture. In today's lecture, we discuss about the difference between metals and non-metals, and we discuss about the first chemical property of the metal, that is the reaction between the metal and the oxygen. Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow once again. Bye bye and take care.